Hello everyone, it's Dylan from Yu-Gi-Oh! Everything, and welcome back to another Yu-Gi-Oh! Video. So I have made this list for every show that has concluded since I have been doing YouTube, and that dates back to the Yu-Gi-Oh! Arc 5 days, and that is top 10 disappointments of Yu-Gi-Oh! Arc 5, Yu-Gi-Oh! Vrains, and in this video, Yugioh Sevens. Now, I always have to preface these videos by saying I enjoy the Yu-Gi-Oh! Anime. I liked Arc 5, I liked Vrains, I liked Sevens, but with every single show, even if a show is a 9.9 out of 10, there should be a few things that maybe you wish the show did differently, and maybe some things that you felt the show kind of missed on. I think that's completely valid and normal, and so in today's video, we are going to be looking at 10 of the things that disappointed me the most. Let me know in the comment section some things that disappointed you about Sevens, and without further ado, let's begin. I hope you guys enjoy. Number 10, Asana and Nail's send-off duels. So Asana and Nail were part of the core 7 characters of Yugioh Sevens, and of the core 7 characters, we saw a lot of them, pretty much all of them, besides Asana and Nail, get really good to solid send-off duels. Gakuto got a good send-off duel against Rinosuke. Roa's send-off duel against Yuga was fantastic. Roman's final duel against Princess G was great. And then Luke and Yuga had that great fight in episode 92 that saw Luke lose his first duel, and of course Yuga became the true king of games. But two characters that I felt got really snubbed in their final duels were Asana and Nail. We know that they had their send-off duels against Galliant and Sebastian respectively. However, those duels were really clip shows and were not the primary focus, but rather cut-in shots that we got while Gakuto was dueling Rinosuke. Felt like each of these characters deserved their own standalone farewell and finale duel, and it's kind of disappointing that these two definitely got the short end of the stick when it came to their final duel. Number 9, Nanaho. So Nanaho was a character that was introduced in Season 2, and it seemed like she was being set up to be a really solid villain or secondary villain in the final arc of Yugioh Sevens. However, Nanaho definitely was pretty misused in my opinion and disappointing in all honesty. We knew that she was childhood friends with Yuga, and I thought what she did in her debut episode was really nefarious. She even pulled some stunts where she basically dressed up as Roman in order to trick Gakuto and Yuga's friends and tried to kind of plant seeds of doubt in their head, but that plotline never really went anywhere, and I just felt like they didn't really know what to do with Nanaho. Obviously, she was always going to be second fiddle to Goha Yuga, but she could have had a duel against Gakuto, she could have had a duel against Ranze and Rinosuke, seeing how they were her family clan's rival. And not getting any real backstory on the Nanahoshi clan and on Nanaho herself after that debut episode was definitely disappointing. She's lower on my list because it's not like I had the craziest expectations for her, but I definitely thought she was mishandled, even if she got the last laugh against Otes. Number 8, Luke's winning streak. So this would have been much higher on the list had Luke not lost his final duel, but even losing the final duel to Yuga at the very end does not save it from being a pretty big disappointment for me in Yugioh Sevens. You guys know by now that I do not like when protagonists, or in this case characters, win every single duel they are a part of. I think losing in Yu-Gi-Oh! Is not only realistic, but it's a tool that the writing team can use in order to legitimize another character, or in order to show character development and growth that an invincible duelist has to now face after they've lost a really big duel. Yuga finally defeats Luke at the end, but all of the character development that happens from the result of that duel being Luke's first loss is shown off screen because it's a 2-year time skip and we barely get anything after the fact. And moreover, I think it would have been way better served if Luke lost to Goha Yuga or even lost to Otes and legitimized a main villain or a threat instead of being pretty much an untouchable duelist. I mean, at least Playmaker and Yusei had draws and no results from time to time. Luke literally won every single duel he was in. It got pretty tedious and quite repetitive, and even though I like Luke a lot, I think that was something the writers definitely did not capitalize on. And so Luke's winning streak comes in 8th on this list. Number 7, Goha Yuga. Oh boy. Well, Goha Yuga is maybe lower on this than he probably will be for a lot of people, and that's because I still thought he was a really well executed character when he was actually in the spotlight. The problem I have is he was barely in the spotlight, and it was only about 10 episodes after his debut before the rug was pulled out under us, and Otes ended up actually being the main villain of the show. And trust me, Otes will be making an appearance on this list a little later on as well. At the end of the day, Goha Yuga, the villains of Yugioh Sevens, were just not really well done. I felt like every time they were building up a threat, whether it was Yugioh, whether it was Goha Yuga, whether it was Nail in that second arc, every time they were building up a threat, that threat didn't last more than a handful of episodes, 10, 15 episodes, and that to me is not a great way to write a long-term villain. I think the 13-episode arcs definitely hurt that because they wanted to conclude a lot of the plot points between arcs ending, but Goha Yuga ultimately had his great debut against Yugioh, had a really good duel against Yuga and Luke, but lost, and then did absolutely nothing except get captured by Otes. Literally did nothing. Oh, well, he defeated Otes and then helped Otes set his plan along. And I just felt in that final arc, he was really underwhelming. And so Goha Yuga comes in the number 7 spot on this list. Number 6, Goha 66, Mr. Goha, top of Hexagon. I'm just going to call this the Goha Corporation. When Yugioh Sevens was first revealed and we saw this towering, terrifying president called Mr. Goha, myself and a lot of people felt like he was going to be a legitimate threat and a terrifying adversary. That was really not true. Even though we got little bits and pieces here of Mr. Goha acting menacingly, the top of Hexagon staff that was right below him outside of Mimi was a complete joke to the point where we don't even know 5 of the 6 members' names, and Goha 66, more corporate Goha members, were also complete jokes after being briefly hinted at being pretty creepy and cold, callous old men. Well, at the end of the day, they were just completely useless. Goha Corporation, from a villain character perspective, was just really bad. I mean, it really was. It was a big letdown. Now, I didn't put much stock into Goha 66 and top of Hexagon, but ultimately, what Goha Corporation was in this show did let me down a bit. I wanted them to be a little more sinister and just a little more capable, I guess you can say. And so Goha Corporation, primarily top of Hexagon, Mr. Goha, and Goha 66 come in the number 6 spot on this list. Number 5, Yuga losing too much. Now, I've gone on record many times stating that I do not have as much of a problem with Yuga losing as much as he did as some other people did in the community, which is totally fair. But Yuga, even for my own taste, I think did lose a little excessively down the road. I mean, there was a point in this show where he went 5 months in real time without getting a win. I mean, there was a point in this show between episodes 70 and 92 that Yuga did not have a single win. That is 22 weeks in real time, almost half a year of real time, and it's the final 6 months of the entire series. I mean, that is unheard of. There was a stretch of duels where he lost to Luke, Tiger, and Roa consecutively, because I'm not counting him defeating Goha Yuga in between that. And so, especially towards the end, it just felt like Yuga was the character that the writers would let everyone walk over whenever they needed to legitimize another character. And I felt like you had Luke right there where you could have used his win streak to do that instead of always using Yuga as a punching bag. Ultimately, it got old fast, and Yuga just lost a little too much, even for my taste. It's not a major, like, top 3 disappointment, but it's pretty high up there at number 5. Number 4, the Goha Siblings. So I might be one of the only people that has the Goha Siblings as a bigger disappointment than Goha Yuga and then Goha 66, Mr. Goha, and top of Hexagon. And the sheer reason for that is I had so much stock in the Goha Siblings, and to me, they fell so under the bar that I thought they were going to reach. I really believed that these characters were going to be the main threats or major players in Season 2, and even though they were major players, I felt after the first, 7 or 8 episodes, a lot of them were just done with the plot. And the plot kind of shifted to Yugioh focus briefly before the Luke man showed up, and then it shifted to Goha Yuga focus, and I don't really view Goha Yuga in the same vein as the other siblings, even though he technically is one, but he was an outcast until really the final episode. The Goha siblings were on the promotional art. I think I just set my expectations too high for these characters, and to see Yugioh duel once and be done, to see Eugene duel once and be done, to see Yudon duel once, beat Gakuto, and never duel again, to me is just absolutely wild. I liked Yuka, I loved Yugioh, but the other three really just were a disappointment. And overall, when I look at the group, I think they were a bit of a letdown. And so the Goha siblings come in number 4 on my disappointments list. Number 3, the villains. This is kind of an overarching thing, but Yugioh Sevens, in my opinion, did not do its villains very well. That was one thing that Vrains, I thought, did very well. It was something that Sevens, I thought, did not do very well. And Sevens did a lot of things well, but villains were not one of them. Goha Yuga has already made an appearance on this list. I thought he was very underutilized, and the same with Nanaho. I thought they were both underwhelming at the end of the day, but all of the villain fake-outs, whether it was Mr. Goha, Top of Hexagon, Double Six, Asana, Nail, Roa, and I know none of them were really supposed to be villains, especially those last 3, but you go through really the entire first season without actually having a legitimate adversary, rather these minor bosses that Yuga and company just have to get over, and then once they get over, they are immediately friends with those characters because those characters aren't evil. At the end of the day, villains can really make or break a show, and I felt the villains of Yugioh Sevens in general was one of the glaring weak points of this series, and it does come in at number 3 for me. Number 2, the runner-up spot is Otes, who also falls under that villain umbrella that we just went over. But man, I can really rip Otes a new one here because I thought he was just really not well done at the end of the show. There were a lot of questions, a lot more questions than should have been asked when the show came to an end, in my opinion, at least surrounding Otis's character. Who is Otes at the end of the day? We really don't know. Why is he following this book? Why does this book mean so much to him? We really don't know. He says things about wanting to put dueling and the results back in the hands of children, yet he's trying to legitimately kill them while they are out in space. He has this godlike persona where he can appear and disappear in places. He has all these holograms set up in the city. He uses all these legendary monsters, including the Sevens Road archetype. He picked out Yuga to be the owner and the holder of the Sevens Road archetype. Why? And I know a lot of people will say, well, there's a lot of mystery surrounding him. Yeah, but that's not a good thing when that mystery can be huge in painting us a way more clear picture when it comes to the final villain of the show. I think Otes is probably a disappointment a lot of people share. And just to be clear, I'm not disappointed in him being the final villain. I actually really like that twist. I'm disappointed in the execution that they had and the motivation that they gave him, especially in that final duel, was just really, really puzzling. Could he appear in Yu-Gi-Oh! Go Rush? He could, but even if he does, when you look at Sevens as a whole, I thought a character that was clearly from day one set up to be the main antagonist was a letdown, and so Otes comes in at number 2 on this list. My biggest disappointment of Yugioh Sevens has to be the formulaic 13-episode arcs. I hated these arcs. I hated the pattern that these arcs were forced to follow. To play devil's advocate to my own point, I understand if this is the first major IP that Studio Bridge is working on, at least regarding Yu-Gi-Oh! So I understand them wanting to say, okay, every arc is going to be 13 episodes. That way we're not going to get overwhelmed handling this massive IP. Maybe that was what they decided to do, and that's why we got the 13-episode arcs. But man, it made for, at times, a very predictable and a very just underwhelming and disappointing pattern that we were forced to watch over and over and over again. Not only was the arc structure incredibly repetitive, but we also had every single final duel of every single arc be a 2-part duel, not including Yuga Otes, which was technically a 3-part duel. And that also just made it very predictable for the viewer while watching to know what that final arc was going to be. You knew it was going to be Yuga versus Roa, and then Nail, and then Asana, and then Luke, and then probably the Luke Man, and then Goha Yuga, and then Otes. It just didn't let our imaginations run wild while watching live, and I think even if you binge it, it's probably very predictable because of the 13-episode arc structure. On top of that, there were a lot of plot points and a lot of elements and character development that I think got cut because they needed to get everything done in these 13-episode arcs. Think about it. After the Roa arc, we don't see him again until, besides the Geta duel, until like the 40s because they're focusing on other characters, and it just felt like a bunch of mini stories at times rather than one overarching story. I think that got better near the end of the show, but the 13-episode arcs were really just way too formulaic for my taste, and I think it left a lot of really good detail out of characters and out of the show in comparison to if you gave 26 episodes to an arc, especially arcs where you're going to bring in the Goha siblings who have 5 characters. They tried to conclude that in a 13-episode arc. It just doesn't work. Sometimes you need longer time spans, longer episode lengths, longer durations in order to make all of your points. And so the 13-episode arcs, I pray they're not a thing in Go Rush, but they are the biggest disappointment for me personally when it comes to Yugioh Sevens. And guys, that about wraps it up. Those are my top 10 disappointments from the Yugioh Sevens anime. Now, I have done this for Yu-Gi-Oh! Arc 5 and Yu-Gi-Oh! Vrains, and I'll link both of those down below in the description. I've also done top 10 duels for Sevens. That will be linked down below as well. A few more Sevens top 10 lists are to come in the upcoming weeks, so keep an eye out for that. Thank you all so much for watching. Please let me know your biggest letdowns of Sevens in the comment section. I'm very excited to talk to you down below. A special thank you to my Platinum tier patrons, Panther J, Blue Maiden 28, and Jarrett Buller, and to my Diamond tier patrons, Jesse Wood and Latrell Smith, and to my Egyptian God tier patrons, Ccapacappuuu and Syn Cloud. To everyone who supports me on Patreon, and to everyone who is a YouTube channel member, thank you so much. The extra support means the world to me, and it allows me to make videos on a semi-daily basis, and I am forever indebted to you guys. Seriously, thank you so much. And definitely check out my channel membership feature and my Patreon for some extra channel perks. And thank you guys all so much for watching. Please leave your thoughts down below in the comment section. Be sure to check out my channel for some more Yu-Gi-Oh! Anime content. And I hope you have an amazing day. Take care, guys.
Best